Hi, my name is Anna Fiskus, and I am a person in long-term recovery from substance use and mental health challenges. I'm also a formerly incarcerated person. I am a single mom working full-time as a peer support specialist here in Charlotte, and I'm also going to school part-time. It has been 8 years since I was released from prison in New Jersey. It has been 5 years since I have been arrested, and 3 years since I graduated from Mecklenburg County's District Recovery Court. When I was in treatment with my infant, which was for about 14 months, I spent several months boots on the ground trying to obtain housing for when I was to transition out of treatment. I applied everywhere, including income-based housing, and discovered that for income-based housing, you had to have 6 months of consistent employment income, and I'd only been working for 5 months, so I couldn't even apply to get on the waiting list. I explored all of the housing resources in Mecklenburg County. I spent hundreds of dollars that I had put into savings while in treatment on application fees. I spoke to several private owners who explained to me that they could not take the risk of renting to someone like me because of negative past experiences with other tenants. There were several places that I couldn't even submit an application to because a lot of the places required 2 to 3 times the rent in your income. And as a formerly incarcerated person, my employment options were limited. And so I worked in the food industry making a little bit more than minimum wage. So even though I could have covered the cost of rent, I didn't meet their income requirements. I was so afraid throughout my time in treatment that I was going to end up homeless with my infant. You know, as a person who spent over 20 years in and out of homelessness and incarceration, hospitalizations, and unwellness, I was not able to raise 3 of my other children. And so it was a huge gift and opportunity to be able to go into treatment and find my recovery pathway while also being able to be a mother to this youngest child. And so I was deathly afraid that homelessness was going to end up being my barrier to being a mother. It just so happened that there was another woman who went through the same treatment program that I did, and she happened to work at a property management company. And so after I explored and exhausted all other avenues, she was able to support me in being approved by her management company for a small 2-bedroom apartment in Greertown. And at the time, I was just so grateful to have a place to transition into that I didn't really question it or research the neighborhood or anything like that. So I graduated from recovery court and I moved into the apartment the next day. One of the documents that this particular management company had me sign when I signed my lease was an early lease termination agreement. And in that agreement that I had to sign, it stated that if I was to break my lease for any reason, I would be responsible to pay 3 months' rent as a consequence. In my experience and perspective, they were slumlords in that they did not do repairs. Their apartments were not up to code. There was no office on site. And many of the other tenants were Section 8 voucher recipients. And so it wasn't long before I discovered that there was someone living in the complex whose significant other was breaking into apartments and stealing flat screen TVs and I ended up discovering that the management company was aware of this long before I moved in. And so I felt that they knowingly and willingly were putting people in jeopardy. And that person ended up breaking into my house. And when the tenant was evicted, they ended up breaking my windows at like 5 o'clock in the morning when me and my infant were sleeping. And so I was grateful because at that point I had obtained new employment, making better money. And I immediately started exploring, other housing options. Although I still did run into the barrier of being a formerly incarcerated person. And again, once again, here I am applying, paying application fees, including letters, including a letter from the district attorney's office stating that the charges I was in recovery court for were dismissed. I was able to find another place in about a month, and that was only because my stepfather just so happened to be their maintenance person. And so because he had been working with them for so long and they knew my situation, they didn't have any issues with my background. And so as it relates to the previous lease and breaking it, I actually had to get the media involved in order for them to break my lease without financially penalizing me. So I ended up, getting this new place in a better area of Charlotte. The rent was higher, but it was a much better experience all the way around. And it was there that I began pursuing home ownership because, I got tired of having to worry, like, is the landlord going to renew the lease? Am I going to have to move again? Am I going to have to go through the whole application process again? If they do decide to renew the lease, are they going to raise the rent? Which up to that point had been my experience that every year they raised it. And I just didn't want to have to worry about that anymore. So I explored all of the first-time homebuyer programs out there in Charlotte. I pursued several of them until I found the pathway that I thought was best for me. And I ended up closing on my own townhouse on September 13th of 2019. And I can tell you that it has been such a huge relief to not have to worry about renting to someone. Yes, I have a mortgage, but I don't have to worry about anybody else being responsible for repairs. I don't have to worry about my criminal background impacting anything because this house is mine. So I just want to encourage anyone out there, home ownership is an option. It does take some footwork and it can be stressful at times, but it is possible and I'm living proof. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my experiences with you.